Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggelhaus. And in this video, we got ourselves another unboxing to do here on the YouTube channel for a book that I probably wouldn't have bought if it had a different label. And so in this video, I'm going to do this unboxing, show off this book, talk about it. I'm excited to have it in the collection, but then later on talk about if the comic book collecting hobby are a bunch of labelists and has an epidemic of labelism. But before I get into it, if you guys could drop me a like, comment, subscribe, if you're enjoying the content, help support the channel, doing one of those things, I would appreciate it. But let us get into this video here today. Now, I'm going to fake like I'm unboxing this box, but I actually already unboxed it in another video because if you guys saw when I was joking about picking up an Avengers 8 going to Zero Town, I mentioned that there were two comics that came in this box. So, this thing's already open. I'm going to preserve that box and reuse it. And I got this other one right here that I'm going to show you guys here today. Now, this is a book that's like my Avengers 8. I was just kind of perusing on Heritage Auctions, and I saw this one come up, and I thought to myself, hey, that doesn't seem like too bad of a price, and maybe it's worth picking it up. I didn't think too much about it, but I decided to add to my collection the real, true appearance of the Incredible Hulk. Incredible Hulk number 2, second appearance of the Incredible Hulk, first green skin, which in my opinion makes this the real Incredible Hulk. Now that I have Incredible Hulk 2 in my collection, frankly, I think Incredible Hulk is a worthless book. No, I'm just kidding. Definitely a really, really cool book to have in the PC. And you will notice that this is actually a 0.5 grade, which is really, kind of the big topic of the conversation I want to have with you guys here today, which is this idea of this is technically an incomplete copy of this book because the back cover is the wrong back cover, which is pretty funny that somebody actually kind of married this book and put it together, but it actually came with the wrong back cover. But obviously when they sent it in, they did whatever they needed to do to get the 0.5 label, as opposed to what, I guess in this particular instance, being that this is a low grade, I mean, it could have got effectively like a green 0.5 or 1.0 or maybe a 1.5, or I don't know how they would have had qualified this as far as the grade is concerned. And that I think is really interesting because in my personal opinion, if this was a book that had a green label, frankly, I probably wouldn't have bought it. Especially for the price that I paid. I mean, actually, the reason I bought it is because I thought the price was so good. I ended up getting this one for $570, which is one of the lowest lows for this book over the last, not just, since the COVID boom, but actually, dating all the way back to like 2017 and 2018. So I just thought that this was a really, really good price, even though it is about as reader as a copy as you can get. But, I'm okay with that when you get to have your hands on a book that, Hulk 2 is pretty rare. It's pretty difficult to find this one, relative scarcity, right? Based on a Silver Age book. But there's not too many of the Hulk books on the census. They're very, very hard to come by. And they're very, very expensive, even at the, 1.0 range. I mean, essentially, 1.0s already shoot up to that, $1,200, $1,300 price point. So, being that the price was, $500, I thought it was worth picking up. But even with that being said, the $500 price point, I can admit that I am a little bit of a labelist. If this was actually in a green CGC label, I probably wouldn't have bought it. Everything has value. Everything has a price. Just because it has the green label doesn't mean that it's not worth paying for. But there is a little bit of a part of me that feels like the blue 0.5 is just a little nicer to have in my collection. And that's kind of where I wanted to talk about this and ask this question of if the comic book hobby is a little bit labelist out there. And I wanted to pull up a few different examples and talk it through with you guys here in this video. So let's take a look here, and I want to show you guys just a few different books talking about the blue label versus the green label. Now, if you guys don't know, when you send your books into CGC, let's say you have a book that is, say, missing a value stamp, and you know that that book would get the green label. Well, you can actually opt into getting a 0.5 blue label if you know that your book is actually qualified. So let's say you had the option to get a green 5.0, but you can actually tell CGC you would rather have a blue 0.5. And that's kind of something that's really interesting because you have to see if there are actually breaking points in terms of values for what collectors actually like. So here you see the Incredible Hulk, number 2, second appearance of the Incredible Hulk, first green skin. of the Incredible Hulk. And you can see the 0.5 right here. This is my purchase, the $576 one. And, it's really interesting to think about because obviously this is one of the lowest prices that has been paid for quite a while, dating all the way back to, you have to go back to here in 2020 and 2019. You see a couple that went for $456, $405, but then all the way back here, you see one that went for $577 in 2017. And these are all, to varying degrees of incomplete or varying degrees of, restoration and all those different types of things that would be on this. And I thought it was interesting because if you go over to the qualified versions and you look at the last 0.5 qualified book that had been sold back in 2017 for $440, not too much cheaper, one, I think that the presentation of my book looks better than this one. But number two, being that this was actually a green label and had the staples replaced as opposed to the wrong back cover, which is, what I have in my case, I don't think I would have paid this amount for this book, even though it was $100 less. And the reason being is because it is in the green label and I have that bias. So I was curious to see if, when we go through some of the other books, if that is actually the case with a lot of other comic book collectors. So I pulled up a few popular ones that I kind of want to show you guys. And then, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, as far as green label versus 0.5 and what you guys actually value more. So here is Fantastic Four 48, obviously a very, very popular book, first appearance of the Silver Surfer. If we go down here to the 0.5 grade, we can see different price points depending on what the flaw actually is. So the last auction sale here was $360. This is a page 11 missing. This to me looks like it would have graded out to be a 3.0. So this 0.5 could have been a green 3.0. I think with the water damage right there, it would have gotten that grade. Then you have a book like this, another 0.5 that has page 14 missing. This one sold for $700 as a fixed priced on eBay. And again, this is probably something that, in my opinion, would have graded out to be maybe a 3.0, maybe if the grader was being really harsh, a 2.5 or something like that, because there is so much damage here on the spine. But if we go over to the green labels and we look at some of the last sold, and we can see that, there hasn't been, sales in a little bit of time. But if I go over to the 3.5 right here and I see the last sale for this one, where you can see that it sold for $840, this one right here has coupon missing from page 11, still grades out to be about a 3.5. Maybe this is a little nicer presenting than some of the other ones that sold recently, but this did command a little bit of a higher price than that of the blue label, although that was when the market was a little bit higher. So if we compare this one right here, $840, to this one right here, the $700 one, I would presume that if you kind of normalize it based on the time horizon and the green label sold more recently, it would also maybe sell around the $700 price point. So seemingly in this instance, it does feel like the green label and the blue label 0.5 are selling proportionally around the same amount, but at the same time, the qualified one is actually a much better presenting copy. So does that acknowledge the fact that there is a little bit of a bias towards those green labels? Now let's take a look at the Incredible Hulk 181 and let's kind of do the same exercise. Last couple 0.5 sales, you see a $13.50 right there on the 90-day moving average. Let's take a look at this book and see kind of what grade this would have been as far as the presentation is concerned. So if I go down here, last couple sales, $1,500 fixed price. Let's see, 1/3 of page 10 missing. So 1/3 of page 10 missing. Just on a quick glance, maybe this, with the color break there, grades out to be anywhere between a 3.0 to a 4.0, something like that. And then here's another one right here, $1,300 fixed price, a little more beat up. Let's say that maybe this is a 2.5 to 3.0 or something like that. And again, centerfold missing, effect story incomplete. So, different types of hits to this particular book. And if we go here to the 181, let's say that it was going to net out to be a 3.0. Do we have any sales? Okay, we have some 3.5s here. And the 30-day moving for the 3.5 is $13.26. So let's kind of pull up this one right here and see what the prices were paid. So if we go to the last sale, $13.26 at auction, and it says Marvel value stamp missing from page 10 does not affect story incomplete. So this is already going to be a more desired copy because it's not missing the centerfold. Now, of course, it's not exactly a one-to-one comparison, but it is interesting to see that it effectively in this version of the example, I would say that the 0.5 is almost commanding better value than that of the qualified grade right here. Because the 3.5 qualified that is only missing a Marvel value stamp is basically selling around the same price as the 0.5 grade that was actually missing the centerfold. So that's something that's really, really interesting. It seems like there is kind of labelism going on in the Hulk 181 case. All right, last little one to look at is this one right here, Amazing Spider-Man #3. Again, I wanted to pick up different books at different ages to kind of do this comparison. Let's take a look at some of the 0.5s. What have they sold for recently? Of course, the first appearance of Dr. Octopus. This one right here, $7.55 at auction. Fifth wrap missing, effects story. Tape on cover incomplete. So there you see it right there. Probably would have graded out to be, a 2.0 or something like that. Then we have another one, $1,200 fixed price, page 11 missing. Another book that looks like it would be sort of a 2.0 range. Now, if we go over to the qualified books right here, do we have a couple examples we can pull up? Let's actually pull out the 1.5 right here, which had a $12.75 sale. So kind of around that same ballpark figure. Here you see page 12 married with tape, and again, presents similar to that of the 0.5 grades, and $12.75 may be slightly higher than that of, say, the fixed price right here of $1,200. But again, I don't know. It's a pretty close comparison overall, especially when you get to that level. And then just for, being diligent, let's take a look here at the 3.5 level, because there has been, a 30-day recent sale. This $26.50 price, obviously a much, much nicer presenting copy. Page 12 missing, does not infect story, incomplete. So we have an ad page missing. And again, this is a much nicer presenting copy, which is why it's commanding twice the price. So again, a little bit different depending on what type of book you're talking about here. It does feel pretty proportional overall based on the values of like, okay, what is the expected value of a book when you have it in a 0.5 grade versus its counterpart with a qualified label, and then, based on buying the book, not the grade, and the presentation, all that stuff. Seems like those values can be pretty similar, although in the Hulk 181 case, it is interesting to see that there might be a slight bias towards the blue label of the Hulk 181 versus the green labels of missing the Marvel value stamp. But that's kind of why I wanted to have this conversation with you guys today, because I think it is very, very interesting to talk about this idea of labelism in the hobby. And I do think that there's been a lot of discussion that CGC has actually been doing a lot of progressive changes over the years to kind of move away, I think, from the qualified labels. I actually do think that CGC and probably dealers and people like that have actually had these conversations of like, once you put a green label on a book, you're basically giving it that scarlet letter. Wouldn't it be better to just give books 0.5 labels? Or I started to see, more 1.0s that have like, coupon cut, but it's a 1.0. And I understand that, not every book is made the same. And sometimes books deserve that 1.0 grade, because if it's just like a tiny piece cut out, I mean, what's the big deal? So I thought that was pretty interesting. And this one right here is a book that, I thought it would be cool to add, even though it's technically missing its back cover. I bought it because it was a blue label and not a green one. Although, because of the fact that it's Incredible Hulk #2, first green skin, maybe the green label would have been appropriate. Anyways, that's all I got for this video. That was my quick little unboxing. Let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think about qualified labels and restored labels? Actually, that whole other conversation. Restored labels don't bother me as much as qualified labels. I don't know what it is about qualified, but I have a little bit of a bias. I admit it. Granted, if it's a certain type of book, like a Golden Age book or whatever, I really don't mind. Anyways, that's all I got for this video. Let me know what you guys think. Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content. See you all in the next video.